Guys, Trump's tariffs could actually have the effect of pushing Bitcoin up in a certain way, but it also could end disastrously. So let's actually talk about it. So, tariffs affect the price of everything. You know what that includes in the field of everything? Bitcoin miners. That's right, because most of them are actually manufactured in China. And they get hit with a double whammy because Trump has a 30% overall tariff on China, plus a 20% tariff specifically on technology things, which Bitcoin miners fall under. Now, there are Bitcoin miners made in other countries, and Bitmain and a couple of the other big ones are looking at shifting some of their production in the United States. But even if you buy ones made in the United States, they're still going to be more expensive than the ones that were made in China and shipped over. You know why? Because U.S. labor in assembling those things is way more expensive. That's why, despite the tariffs, Apple is not going to assemble iPhones in the United States. They're just moving to India and other places. By the way, the Trump phone is also going to be made in China or other places, but he'll probably get an exemption for his phone, which is, I think, supposed to be $499 or something like that. Either way, these Bitcoin miners, they're going to get more expensive. Now, electricity is going to stay the same, so that cost isn't going up. But if your startup cost, which is a significant portion of the cost, obviously, gets greater, then obviously the stuff you produce has to be worth more, or your business is going to go down the drain. Now, I don't exactly know how much a 50% increase in the price of Bitcoin miners, 30 plus 20, is going to result in for Bitcoin prices. It won't be a 50% increase in Bitcoin prices because obviously electricity plays a large part in mining prices. But it might have to go up like 5, 10, 15% to offset that cost, at least initially. Now, short term, most of these miners are still all going to be made in China, India, wherever. But long term, they might shift some production back in the United States if the policy actually holds. But even if it does, like the United States stuff is going to be more expensive. I don't know how much more expensive. I could guess it's probably like 20, 30% more expensive. Better than the 50% tariffs that China has on these Bitcoin miners. But still going to be more expensive. So, your Bitcoin is going to have to rise to actually compensate. Now, that's what we hope will happen. That there's too big of an industry around this. They can't afford for the hash rate to actually go down because that would actually affect the price of Bitcoin as well. And that will bring the price of Bitcoin up. That's the optimistic case. Now, what about the pessimistic case? Oh, that's bad. That means the hash rate of Bitcoin will go down. And of course, hash rate and price all correlate with each other. So eventually, the price of Bitcoin has to drop as well. Now, that theory has a couple of problems because you're not really looking at the institutional adoption of Bitcoin. There's a lot more institutional money in it. BlackRock, MicroStrategy, Fidelity, all these others. They probably don't want the price of Bitcoin to be permanently lower because of this. So they might actually do some manipulation in the longer term to actually drive the prices up. Or they might actually start running hash themselves to actually pump up the price. It's very, very likely that they do because they have billions of dollars worth of this asset and they can't see it spiraling downward into oblivion. Otherwise, they get wiped out too. Not to mention some of the other countries are buying Bitcoin as well. And the US has about 200,000 Bitcoin in their treasury. This is all billions of dollars worth of assets. So the countries and the companies might step in at this point. Now, what's going to happen at that rate is they're probably going to buy more Bitcoin first, and they'll have even more control of it as they solve these, hash rate problems. Now, some of you are like, oh, could they just abandon Bitcoin and go into altcoins? No, they're not going to do that. They're not going to go into any other altcoins besides Bitcoin. They already have billions of dollars worth of this asset, and they're just not really going to randomly let it go for another altcoin. So that's not happening. But they could possibly pull the price up at least to where it's even to where it is right now. Because right now, the price of Bitcoin is just about, I think, $20,000 above the mining cost. But if you up the price of miners, 20, 30%, they still have to make profit on those miners and the electricity. And plus, with gas going up, electricity is probably going to go up as well. So the thing is, I do think Bitcoin probably has to shift to be about 115, 120, 125, hopefully. And I think the big guys are going to have to manipulate it up to that price to actually make mining worth it. Or they're going to have to mine themselves and just take a loss of mining in order to actually get some more Bitcoin. But I don't really know if big companies are going to be willing to do that. So my hope is either via the intervention of big companies or just the fact that like market pressures will drive Bitcoin up because the hash rate will get higher Bitcoin. And of course, with that, altcoins at least will rise temporarily. Hopefully, this all happens in October, November, because that is the timeline for altcoin bull run with all the ETFs, and that would actually align very much perfectly. Hopefully, the Iran-Israel thing is pretty much over by then, and we can just breathe a sigh of relief. Hopefully, the interest rates will be cut once or twice by then, and we could have a really big rally. But that is kind of like the one way where Trump's tariffs could indirectly force Bitcoin up to a bigger price because it will increase the cost of mining Bitcoin. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.